Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're digging into something we do all the time, but, rarely think about, the hidden science of position. We're going to see how our bodies are constantly communicating, whether we're in the boardroom or the bedroom, and how, once you understand this language, it can kind of change everything.
So let's start with a really surprising story, one that shows just how much we can misunderstand something as basic as position. It all starts with a term that we all think we know, but the story behind it, well, it's not what you think. Actually, it's a total myth.
All right, so let's talk about the so-called missionary position. Pretty much everyone recognizes that term, right? But its origins have nothing to do with what you've probably heard. They actually trace back to a huge research mistake. So get this. The term didn't come from missionaries teaching it or anything like that. It was literally born from a mistake. In 1948, the famous researcher Alfred Kinsey just misunderstood an earlier study. And that little error was repeated as fact for over 50 years until 2001 when someone finally went back and checked the receipts.
And when you go back to the original text from Malinowski, it's fascinating. The Trobriand Islanders' issue with the position had absolutely nothing to do with morality. It was a practical, biomechanical problem. They just thought it was physically awkward and, well, didn't work very well.
And this is how it all went wrong. Kinsey basically took two completely separate things and just smushed them together. He took the Islanders' complaint about a sex position and their nickname for holding hands in public, which they called missionary fashion, and he created a whole new term. And poof, a myth was born. This whole story just perfectly highlights a much bigger idea. How we position our bodies is deeply connected to function and comfort, which brings us right to the science.
Okay, so let's shift gears now, away from the historical myth and into the hard science. Because our bodies are essentially incredible machines. They're governed by really precise mechanical principles. And that's true whether we're just walking down the street or in our most intimate moments. Every single movement is this careful balance of forces.
I mean, just think about walking, something we do without a second thought. It's actually this incredibly complex mechanical cycle. You've got the stance phase, where your foot's on the ground bearing weight, and the swing phase, where it's moving through the air. And that same level of mechanical precision applies to pretty much every physical thing we do.
Now this brings us to a really key clinical concept. A study from the University of Waterloo on spine motion during sex introduced this term, spine sparing. It doesn't mean there's one magic position that's good for everyone. It just means finding the movements that don't trigger your specific individual pain points.
And this chart, it just lays it all out perfectly. There is no single best position. It's totally dependent on the type of back pain you have. So, for guys whose pain gets worse when they bend forward, that's flexion intolerance, the missionary position is actually one of the worst things they can do. But for guys whose pain flares up when they arch their back, extension intolerance, it's one of the best. The real takeaway here is that it is entirely personal. Okay, so this is all great clinical data, but what do you do with it? How do we actually use this knowledge? Let's try and translate this science into some practical advice that can make a real difference for anybody. And believe me, the stakes are incredibly high. Look at this number, up to 84%. That isn't just a statistic. That represents people's lives, their relationships, and their happiness. This isn't just academic. It's about helping people reclaim a really important part of their life. And these joint smart positions, which come recommended by urologist Dr. Emma Blake, are all about making small, smart adjustments that have a huge payoff. It can be as simple as putting a pillow under your hips or moving to the edge of the bed. These little tweaks can completely change the experience by taking pressure off your spine and your joints.
This quote from Rachel Verena it nails it. We have this idea that comfort is somehow the enemy of passion, but it's really the exact opposite. When you're not distracted by pain or awkward straining, your body can actually relax and focus on pleasure. Comfort is the key that unlocks the whole thing.
And a lot of the time, it just boils down to these three simple habits, and they're totally universal. Doesn't matter if you're 25 or 65. Supporting your body, pacing yourself, and reducing friction. These are the basic building blocks that can turn intimacy from something that feels like a strain into something that's all about sensation. But here's where it gets even more interesting. This whole science of position goes way beyond just physical mechanics. Our posture, how we hold ourselves, is also a constant, silent broadcast of what's going on inside us. From a job interview to a first date, our bodies are always talking. You see, researchers have a name for this: relational messages. It's all the nonverbal stuff, your posture, your facial expressions, the tone of your voice,
And we use these signals to make split-second judgments about people. Are they dominant? Are they composed? Can I trust them? Just think about it for a second. When you perceive someone as confident or having high status, what do you see? They tend to project outward. Their voice is a bit louder. Their face is more expressive. They move more. And nervousness? Well, it's the exact opposite. It's signaled by withdrawn, rigid, quiet cues.
But here's the most surprising part. The thing the researchers found that kind of blew my mind. It's not about being loud or expressive all the time. The real key is being dynamic. The study found it's the variation of your signals, the range from high to low, expressive to calm, that we perceive as confidence. Being stuck in one mode, that rigidity, is what really signals nervousness.
Okay, so we've gone from a 70-year-old myth to the biomechanics of back pain, all the way to the social psychology of a negotiation. So what's the thread that ties all of this together?
The big picture is this. The language of the body is universal. And once you understand that language, it allows you to move with intention. You can use it to relieve physical pain, to increase pleasure, and to communicate confidence, often without ever saying a single word.
So, I'll leave you with the question on the screen. The next time you sit down or stand up or walk into a room, just ask yourself, if every posture is a statement, what is my body saying right now? That's our